The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood Redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, Phenomenal Women, featuring in-depth interviews with today's most inspiring women. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood Redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, Phenomenal Women.
So as you can see, this is one of my favorite songs for this show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Black Hollywood Live's Phenomenal Women. I'm your host, Ashida Onrae, and I have a very special guest with me today, Bernita R. Walker. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for asking.
And, you know, this is a very serious topic that we're going to be discussing today. Bernita R. Walker is one of the founders of the Jenesse Center for Battered Women. We got a little music going on here in the background. But also she co-founded the Project Peacemakers Inc. So we're going to discuss about Project Peacemakers Inc. Tell us what inspired you to start your company.
Well, 5 of us started Jenesse Center, and I worked there for 15 years. And it has to go back before then, because our children were who inspired us to do something as a social club, the Jenesse Social Club. And in doing that, we found out in looking for an activity or something that we all had experienced, that we all had been victims of domestic violence. So that's really where it began. And I worked there for 15 years, and the Lord saw fit to move me or excel me to working to not working with 3 to 4% of the victims as we did at Jenesse, but working with 95 to 96% of the victims. So that's what we do. That's what inspired me. And what really pushed me was the fact that I'm a survivor.
Wow. Now tell us, now one of the questions that I would like to ask is help us and the viewers and the listeners to go into the mindset of a woman who is being abused, and then the mindset of the abuser. So maybe that we can help along the way to help them break that cycle.
Well, one of the things about being a victim of abuse is most people think that if you're not being hit, you're not being abused. And that's not the case. That is the final dynamic in the dynamics of domestic violence. You can be emotionally abused, financially abused, sexually abused, mentally abused, as well as educationally abused. And most people don't understand. When you're blocked from being who you are, you're in an abusive state. So the mindset there, a number of individuals believe that it's because a person has low self-esteem that they allow themselves to be in that position, and that's usually not the case. The esteem of the victim is high. However, the control of the abuser is higher.
Oh, that's interesting. I never looked at it that way. I just learned something.
Okay.
Okay.
And love plays a big part in it. You know, women are very caring. They want to help everybody. Some people we can't help because it locks us in to not being able to help ourselves. And that's the situation, one of them, as far as domestic violence is concerned.
So basically we see as, you know, when we hear domestic violence, we just see it as physical. But then there's other aspects to it that play a part in being abused. I mean, yes, there's verbal, you know, abuse when there's physical, but like you said, there's emotional, there's financial. And how does, give us an example about financial, how does financial abuse play a part?
An individual, a victim, and I say it that way because you have victims that are male as well. They're working every day, but when they get their paycheck, they have to bring it home to their abuser uncashed, or they may be allowed to cash it and buy groceries, but bring home the receipt as well as the stub from the paycheck to the abuser. They may be put on a very strict allowance that only allows them to buy food for the house and nothing for themselves. So it can be in all of those aspects. There are a number of movies that we've seen, excuse me, Sleeping with the Enemy,
Yes.
for one. You know, he bought her dresses. He directed everything that she did as far as her finances were concerned. It also happened in Enough. He was directing her finances. You know, so those types of things keep the victim under control in the relationship. Because if I've worked and I don't have funds to use, then I have to stay where I am until I can find a way to break out.
Wow. I'm learning so much listening to you.
But educational abuse. You know,
Yeah.
victims are not allowed to go to school to get an education. Because if you get an education, then you can get a job. Then you can find another avenue of getting out. If you get an education, then you may get involved in some way, just in conversation with the people that you're in class with or in school with, that will convince you as a victim to get out of that situation.
So, as a victim, how do you prevent, being that you have such a strong personality or, you know, strong self-esteem, how does one get in that situation, and how can you recommend them to get out of it?
Okay. Most often, the way that they get in is because abusers are very cunning. They are very, they're con individuals. Okay, so they run games on you. And they're so used to running the games, so you don't know the type of games that you run. Love seeks its own level. We all want to be loved. And when love presents itself, and I'm doing quotations on that,
Right.
then we fall for it because we want to be loved. You have to look at the statistics where you got 7 women to every 1 man. So there's a number of things that are going on that gets us caught in these violent relationships, abusive relationships. And we don't know it until we're so far in it, till it's hard to get out. We have to start planning how to get out.
Right.
Because you just can't walk away from an abusive relationship because you may be putting your life in danger. Anytime a victim of domestic violence decides to leave that relationship, they increase the rate of injury by 75%.
Now, injury meaning that they will be attacked.
They could be attacked, they could be killed, their family could be attacked, the children can be stolen from them. It's just a number of things that encompass that injury.
So how do you prevent, what do you teach them on that fear? Because that's what keeps them there, is that fear. So what advice do you give a victim to say, you know, yes, that increases, but you're still able to walk away?
Well, there are a number of shelters that are in the United States. In the county of Los Angeles, there are approximately 23 shelters that they can go to. The problem with that is that shelters don't always have space available because of individuals that need finances, for one. Finances very hard to get for shelters. And then once they get there, the victims, it's like going from being enslaved to being, I don't want to say enslaved, but still being in that captive state, because you have rules and regulations that you have to follow. And if you don't follow those rules and regulations, then you don't stay at the shelter. So it takes a specific type of individual seeking that particular type of solace so that they can move forward. And while they're taught a number of things. Now, Project Peacemakers, we work with those who don't go to shelter because everybody does not want to leave their job. Everybody does not want to be away from their family. Everybody doesn't want to leave some of their children away from where they are, because there are, like, again, certain rules and regulations that have to be followed and certain criteria that has to be met in order to get into a shelter. So we work with those who decide that it's better for them not to go to a shelter. We empower them by giving them understanding as to what domestic violence is, or what domestic abuse is, or what intimate partner violence is. We have so many different little names for it.
Right.
And so that's our main goal, is to empower them so that they understand they don't have to go through this, to understand what it is, the control that's there. Now, understand this also. One of the things that we know in the field of domestic violence, intimate partner violence, those who perpetrate the violence, they are victims also. Because someone had to teach them how to be violent.
Right, because you're not born that way.
Okay? When you're born, you want to grab everything around you, the knowledge. Our minds are like sponges, we just want to soak up everything. The problem is that we soak up the environment that we live in because we're all products of our own environment. And whatever our parents or the adults that are in our lives are exposing us to, then that's going to be a shaping as to who we are. So those who observe individuals who are abusive to other individuals and label it love, that's all they know.
And it's hard to break that cycle because that's what they see. That's what they're like, okay, this must be right. This must be correct. But then how do you, when you speak to them, how do you break that cycle? How can you break it as a friend or as a family member?
To the victim or to the abuser?
To both, yeah. Because they're like, well, this is what I know. This is what my mom, my dad.
It takes counseling. It takes time. It takes prayer. All of those things play a big part in changing the individual. It's a learned behavior, so it can be changed. Anything you've learned, you can learn to do better. You can learn to do without it. If we know better, we do better. Okay, and so we have to change the individuals that we are around. It's sort of like saying, excuse me, everybody get one. Once you've learned, then you go teach somebody else and bring them in, and then they teach somebody else, and you go on and teach someone else, and it spreads that way. There are a number of classes that are available to individuals at Project Peacemakers. We do domestic violence counseling, as well as anger management, parenting, life skills, because all of those play a part in protecting the survivor from getting back into that type of situation again.
And then also, how do you protect the victim, I guess, the abuser, who's also a victim as well? How do you teach them to think differently, that love is completely different from the abuser's aspect? Because it has to be different from the one that's being abused as opposed to the one that's actually doing the abusing.
Right.
There has to be, you got to teach them something different from what they know. Right? Is that
exactly? In the field of domestic violence, intimate partner relationships, we have batterers treatment programs. And in those batterers treatment programs, they teach them to rethink all of their experiences in domestic violence and domestic abuse or abusive relationships. Because most batterers, most abusers, of course, they blame the victim for
their reaction.
Exactly, because they're reacting to what the victim has done.
Right.
I remember once I bought tickets to a football game for myself, my abuser, and a girlfriend of mine and her husband. Now, I had been warned by my abuser not to buy any tickets for anyone. He didn't want anyone sitting around us that knew us. I'm a fan of a number of the athletic events. For instance, basketball, football, tennis, track and field. Those are my specialties, okay? So he wanted to allow the persons that we didn't know sitting around us to know that his woman knew about football. If we had friends that sat around us, then they would interfere with the conversations I would be able to hold with the person sitting around us. So I was warned, because I had asked him about buying tickets or somebody else going with us. And he says, well, I really don't want anybody sitting around us, that type of thing. So I said, okay, fine. So I went on about the tickets anyway. And I'm going like, the Coliseum hosts 10,000 people. Right. What could it matter about these two individuals that are going to be joining us at this football game? Well, out at the time, Martin Luther King Boulevard was actually Santa Barbara Boulevard. And as we were walking across the street after the game, I was jumped on in the middle of the street. Everybody that was around us just moved away and just allowed me to be battered right there in the middle of the street. Okay?
Wow.
So, you know, you never know when it's going to happen, and that's one of the problems for victims. We live on eggshells because we don't know when we're going to put too much salt in the soup, because we've been told before the soup was too salty, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we just don't ever know. So we have to work with the abusers to get them to understand that it's not the victim's fault, because you as an abuser can walk away.
Right.
If you're unhappy, if you're angry, walk away. That is not the way to take your anger out on another human being.
Right, right. I'm so happy that you were able to walk away from that completely and look at what you start to help others. Now, being that you are a survivor, what was that moment like when you decided, I've had enough? What was, take us to that day? You smile. You smile, it's a beautiful smile.
It was that incident.
And it was that
It was that incident, actually, because that was on a Sunday. And it was either the 23rd of the month or the 8th of the month. And I know you go like, why would you say that? At the time, I was a deputy sheriff for the county of Los Angeles. And my batterer was an LAPD officer.
Wow.
And I didn't have any food in the house because we got paid on Tuesday. So I hadn't stocked up anything. It was time for me to go stock up. So at any rate, he said to me, after beating me, I got home, I laid on the couch, and he says, you know what, I need to go get something for your face. And he went to the store, and he got a steak for my face so he could put it on, you know, when you get hit in the eye, and the cold draws, the, you know, all that. Okay, anyway, I chose to lay on the couch after praying for, I don't know, the umpteenth time, Lord, what do I do to get out of this relationship? Because I did it from the first time he put his hands on me. Because I did not want to stay there. I didn't stay there because I wanted to. I was trying to figure out a way to get out of it where I would not lose my job because I would have killed him, or that I would not lose my child and have her to be homeless, not homeless, but away from me because she would have lived with my mother and father. That wasn't the problem. But God said to me, as he has said the other 2 times when I went after the beatings, he said, tell him to leave you alone. And I go arguing with God again. But, you know, God, you have lost your mind. Why would you tell me again to tell this man to just leave me alone? I said, but you know what? The first 2 times you told me that, I didn't do it. This time I'm going to do it. But I'm going to do it because I'd rather die getting out than die staying in. And it was just like God said, okay, and just folded his arms and sat back and waited. And so I laid on the couch with my right hand, because I'm right-handed, underneath my pillow. Not because I had anything there, but because that was the most comfortable way that I could lie there with this pillow. And he came in from the store and put the steak on my face. And he asked me, he says, now, I know you don't have any food in the house, so I know I'm going to go back to the store and get you something to eat. But what else would you like for me to do for you? And I got all the courage I could up, and I said to him, leave me alone. And he says, I'm not going to bother you anymore. I wouldn't have done it this time if you had did what I told you. If you hadn't have done what I told you not to do.
That's that control.
And I said, I didn't say anything. He said, so now what do you want me to do for you? Leave me alone. And he looked at me and he says, you mean you really want me to leave you alone? I said, yes. He took a step back from where I was lying and he said, I'm not going to bother you anymore. I'm going to leave you alone. He said, I'm sorry for what I did in the past. I'm not going to bother you anymore. And he backed out the front door. And I'd have to explain how the couch was on the wall that the front door was on. So he never turned his back on me. He backed to the front door and went out. And I said, ooh, Lord, I did what you told me to do, and he left me alone. Then I started calling myself, you know, you sure was silly, that type of thing, talking to myself. And he didn't bother me for about 2 weeks. Then he started stalking me.
So now that becomes another issue.
That's another issue.
Okay.
Okay, and that's one of the reasons why victims go into shelter, because it's a confidential location. And there, they are more than likely as safe as possible because of the fact that no one knows where those locations are unless, of course, they're being stalked or someone sees them in the neighborhood. When they go into shelter, you never go into a shelter that's close to where you live, work, or where the abuser works, or his family. And I'm saying his because usually it's a woman that goes into shelter. There are shelters for men, but they're very few. So for, I'm sorry.
It's okay. You okay?
Yeah, I lost my train of thought because I was talking so
No, well, because then it becomes another issue because then it becomes stopped.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So he did. He stalked me for a while. And then he finally broke in my house one night. Well, I shouldn't say broke in. He had a key that he told me that he had lost to my front door. And he came in on me and threatened me again. And I just looked at him like, brother, you just don't know. And he had given me some jewelry, and he wanted his jewelry, so I gave him his jewelry back. And I just kind of laughed. And he's, why are you laughing? I said, it's okay. I'll get it back. And he looked at me strangely, and he walked out. And then he started again stalking me and apologizing. And he did give me my jewelry back. He was like, okay, she's not playing. She ain't playing no more.
There's a whole different different Bernita going on right now. Yeah.
We would run into each other at different events, law enforcement events. And when he saw me walk in the door, he would go out the other door. And I'd go over to where he was sitting. I said, oh, I thought I saw so-and-so sitting there. He said, yeah, but he had to leave right away. I said, okay. So I was thinking that he probably thought I had my weapon, my service revolver, underneath the pillow with my right hand. And if he came to me, I was going to. That's why he backed out the door.
So do you think that's the reason why the abuser backs up, because they see a whole different person in the woman and they start to see, okay, wait, I don't know this person, I don't recognize her, and now she's become fearless and is ready to fight back. So then the fear changes and then they become fearful.
Yes.
And then they say, okay.
Yes. That is one of the reasons. Another reason is that, again, I go back to the statistic of what 1 man to every 7 women. Why if it's a male abuser, why do I have to deal with this individual when there's somebody else out there that's willing to do what I want them to do and not give me any static about it?
Yeah, and that's interesting because that's how the dating field is. And outside of, the abuse, it's just a matter of, that's just how almost men think, in a sense. Not all men. I don't want to get a whole bunch of, comments. Not all men.
That's how abusive.
It's abusive. But even outside of that world, men just feel that way, period, too. And then the women, like you said, there's always, 1 woman to every 7 guys. They would just lower their standards.
No. There's 1 guy to every 7 women.
1 to every 7, yes, excuse me. And then they will lower their standards and then just accept it. And then the men get used to that, and then they feel power in that.
Right.
And it's just...
And that's what domestic abuse is. It's power and control.
Power and control. Wow. Well, to our viewers, just to recap on anything, if you are in an abusive relationship, whether it's physical, mental, financial, emotional, please contact Bernita R. Walker, and she can help guide you through to a better life, a better way.
One of the staff
members at Project Peacemakers Inc. And where can they? Is that peacemakersinc.com? Where can they find you on the web, online?
Our website is www.projectpeacemakersinc.org.
And I want to take another step back because Miss Bernita here is a sports enthusiast. So I want to talk to you about these Lakers real quick.
We're coming back. We're coming back. We're rebuilding.
That's what you think?
I know it.
Really?
Of course.
So who would you suggest that they get as a coach? What's your take on that?
Byron, I want Byron.
You want Byron?
I want Byron. He's an LA girl, my boy. You know, he's Morningside High School, and I think he would be a great coach in following those types of things, you know.
And if they can't, who's your second choice? You have a second choice?
I haven't even, my second choice would have been Derek Fisher.
I know. I love Derek Fisher.
I really don't have a second choice. Lately, I haven't been following it a lot. I'm a 710. I listen to 710 all the time. And right now they're talking about football, and every now and then they talk about basketball. So I really haven't been following it closely. Been working too hard.
I know. Well, you saving lives.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. Amen. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I truly appreciate it. And giving us
the phone number?
Yes, absolutely.
The phone number for Project Peacemakers is 323-291-2525. 323-291-2525. And that's the better way to get to our office instead of the website. But anyone that we can assist, we'll be glad to assist you. If it's nothing but referrals to someone else that can give you some additional help. And I want to say this also.
Yes.
One of the other dynamics is medical and dental, because doctors are mandated reporters if they suspect domestic violence. So when a victim is abused, they're not allowed by their abuser to go to get medical assistance. So I just want to put that out there as well.
Oh, wow. I'm just learning so much this morning.
Well, I'm glad you are. And I hope the listeners are learning as well.
I thank you so much for being with us. And you know what, before we sign off, can you, coming from that you are a survivor, can you say one inspirational thing that you can inspire for another victim out there, just to give her some kind of, like, I can do this? After hearing your story and you leaving, after, you know, telling us about your company, can you share one thing to a listener and a viewer that she can do? It's a piece of inspiration, something positive that you felt, that you've learned, that you know deep down in here that you can share with her.
Love doesn't hurt. Love doesn't hurt. So if you're being hurt, you're not being loved. Get out.
And there's a way.
There is a way.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm your host, Ashida Onrae. We look forward to inspiring you next week.
From producers Maria Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in.
The views expressed here are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.
Thanks for watching Black Hollywood Live on YouTube. For more in-depth interviews and news, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion in the comment section below here. See you soon, everyone. Bye.